Hello, everybody. Vasu Party here for the VPartySports Podcast on this Thursday, November 10th, 2022. Coming up on this podcast, we'll preview Thursday Night Football. We'll talk about the continuation of Week 10 in the NFL, the halfway point of the NFL season. 136 games have been played after Monday night's game. The other 136 start tonight with the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. As always, we're sponsored by the Brit Sports Pub and Patio, downtown San Jose. Come in on Sunday, see the podcast live from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. Mention the podcast to receive 10% off your entire bill during NFL Sunday Ticket. The Brit Sports Pub and Patio, 10% off your entire bill, as we said. 173 West Santa Clara Street. Check them out at thebritsj.com. All right, let's get going here. As we said, a look back with NFL Sunday coming up this weekend, but we've got Thursday Night Football coming up. Let's start with Week 10. A great game that was 2 weeks ago between the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. Atlanta won that game in overtime, 37-34. We'll get to the minutia of it in a second. But tonight, the Atlanta Falcons are a 2.5-point favorite on the road, 41.5 the total. Falcons tied with the Buccaneers at 4-5 for the top of the NFC South, but because of their loss to Tampa Bay early in the year, they do not have the tiebreaker. They're in second place. Carolina, 2-7 in last place. They've traded McCaffrey, P.J. Walker, their quarterback. They had a rough game last week with the Cincinnati Bengals. Walker got pulled. Baker Mayfield, whom they traded for during the offseason, came in the second half, led them to some points as well, too. But here's the notes that go with this game tonight. Carolina's 3-0 against the South. They've against the spread versus the South. They've covered against the Saints. They beat the Buccaneers, and then they covered against the Falcons on the road 2 weeks ago. Atlanta 2-1. Their only loss against the spread was to the Carolina Panthers. Falcons won 37-34 2 weeks ago. Did you see the game? Do you remember how the game ended? Atlanta was a 4.5-point favorite that day. The total was 41.5. Panthers would have won that game had DJ Moore not taken off his helmet. Let's go back to that scenario here. Falcons up by 6. I had Atlanta minus 4.5, by the way. Falcons up by 6. P.J. Walker throws a Hail Mary with no time left. DJ Moore got behind two defenders, able to make the catch. Celebration ensues on the Carolina sidelines in the Carolina end zone, but you can't take your helmet off. You can't take your helmet off in the field of play. It cost him 15 yards, an unsportsmanlike conduct on DJ Moore, caught what would have been the game-winning touchdown had they made the extra point. Well, Arthur Smith, being a smart coach, did not have the kickoff ensued 15 yards deeper. Instead, he had the extra point moved back, with the extra point being at the 15-yard line. 15-yard penalty made it a 30-yard line spot and a 48-yard field goal attempt, extra point attempt. Eddie Pinheiro misses it. The game goes to overtime. Atlanta wins on a Young Ho Koo overtime field goal game-winning kick, 37-34. They do not cover the 4.5 points. They go way over the total. But a 37-34 victory for the Atlanta Falcons that allows them to stay tied with the Buccaneers. Though, again, we said the Buccaneers are in second place due to the head-to-head versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A 21-15 game. Now, Atlanta has lost 3 straight. They've not covered 3 straight, I should say. They're 6-3 against the spread. Last week they had a game against the Chargers. They had a lead 10-7. Chargers came back 14-10. Then they had a lead. Did the Falcons 17-14. And then at the end, it was the Chargers 20-17. As we look at it, it was Cordell Patterson, who's back on injured reserve. He had a 3-yard run to make it 17-14. And then at the end, Cameron Dicker, a kicker named Dicker the kicker. There's a lot of jokes to go with that. Even the Chargers were making fun of it on the sidelines if you check out NFL film. 31-yard field goal to tie it at the 5:27 mark. And then with no time left, Cameron Dicker, 37-yard field goal for the win for the Chargers. That put the Falcons at 4-5. They did not cover the 2.5. They were a 2.5-point underdog to the Chargers last week at home. Had every reason to win that game. Had a lot of good reasons. Chargers didn't play that great. They did get Austin Eckler 2 touchdowns, so we'll get to them in a second. The Chargers play on Sunday night out here in the Bay Area versus San Francisco. But the Panthers and the Falcons tonight on Thursday Night Football, not a great game in a lot of people's eyes, but it is a big game for Atlanta. And believe it or not, the Carolina Panthers are 2-7. They may not win the division. They may not make the playoffs. They've traded Christian McCaffrey. They've gone back and forth between quarterbacks. But if they win, they'll only be a game back of the Atlanta Falcons for second place, tied with the Saints, and only a game and a half back of the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers have a tough game on Sunday. Not exactly chopped liver. They're going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Germany. Early start. Tampa Bay designated the home team on Sunday. They're a 2.5-point favorite against the Seahawks. We'll get to all the Sunday stuff in a minute, but it's Carolina and Atlanta right now with a chance for Atlanta to maintain the NFC South, keep in contact with Tampa. Carolina, not that far back, clearly the worst division in football, but here we go. Let's go back to that game. Last week, 2 weeks ago, Panthers going with Walker tonight. Kind of surprising, but here's why they're going with P.J. Walker. We knew he had a terrible game against Cincinnati, but all the indications are 3 days off in between is not enough time to make all the changes that need to be made for Baker Mayfield to get in there. Do I agree with that? Probably not. But P.J. Walker had a big game against Atlanta, 317 yards, passing, a touchdown, an interception. Mariota was really good for the Falcons as well, too. 253 yards passing with 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Dante Foreman, 118 yards rushed against the 8th-ranked Atlanta defense coming into this week versus the rush. But he had 118 yards. Did not have a lot. They didn't rush a lot last week. They were down 35-0 to the Bengals at the half. The Falcons last in pass yards allowed. That was evident by the fact that a guy from the XFL, P.J. Walker, all due respect to him, 317 yards passing. But the Falcons are last in pass yards allowed. Meanwhile, the Panthers are 28th versus the rush. Cordell Patterson back off the injured reserve list. Should have a bigger role this week. And we'll split more carries with Tyler Algier. Carolina 21st versus the pass, though Atlanta does not really throw the ball very much. They're 4th in the NFL in rushing yards per game. So let me just make sure of that. I saw that, didn't put it up here for everybody to see it. But from what I remember and from seeing all the games that I see, I believe that Atlanta is, first of all, they're down in total offense, but in rushing yards at nearly 163 yards a game, they are 4th in the NFL behind the Chicago Bears, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Cleveland Browns. Justin Fields leading the Bears team with the rushing right now. Baltimore, of course, we know about Lamar Jackson, and then Nick Chubb leads the NFL in rushing. Atlanta 4th with their combination of running back and quarterback and Mariota running. So Carolina 21st versus the pass versus the rush. Carolina is right about, let's see, they're 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23. 22nd against the rush in the NFL are the Carolina Panthers. So very interesting take on the game today. I'd love to hear your comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks again to the Brit Sports Pub and Patio for sponsoring us. We'll replay these broadcasts on the YouTube channel later on for everybody at the Brit so that they can see it as well before tonight's game starts, 8 o'clock Eastern on Prime Video, or if you're locally in Atlanta and Carolina, you'll have it on regular TV. But the Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta 2.5-point favorite, 41.5 the total. We said the Falcons tied with the Buccaneers 4-5, but they're second because of the head-to-head. Carolina 2-7 and last. Against the spread, the Carolina Panthers are 3-0 versus the South. They beat New Orleans. They covered against Atlanta. And how about that game 3 weeks ago where I told you that they were a 13.5-point underdog against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And it's very hard to take road favorites like that. Not saying that this is the same scenario. 2.5 points is a lot different than a 13.5-point favorite. But the Carolina Panthers did shut down Tampa Bay 21-3 at home. So that gives them their 3-0. Atlanta's 2-0. They are, I have this down here. Let me make sure I get this right here. They covered against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they covered against the Saints in a loss on opening day at 27-26. Game-winning kick by the Saints, Will Lutz. That was a loss, but they did cover there. They did cover against the Buccaneers with 2 touchdowns late, 21-15, and then their only non-cover was against the Panthers 2 weeks ago in that 37-34 loss. Don't take your helmet off on the field, DJ Moore, tonight, just in case you need to cover the points for the home team if you're taking the underdog tonight. We'll get to our best bet segment in a little bit as well, too. As we said, DJ Moore took the helmet off. They end up losing in overtime. They could have won that game. They're 3-6. They're right in it. They're tied with Atlanta, in fact, for second place, a game back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if, in fact, they tied it. Love to hear your comments on Facebook. Love to hear your comments on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to my Facebook page. Get on Twitter at VPartySports and on Instagram, VPartySports. Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 Pacific time. We'll be on air live with sound inside the Brit Sports Pub and Patio. Then we'll be online on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for the rest of the show, talking about the afternoon games as well as NBA, NHL, free agency as well, too. We'll get to all that in a minute. But right now, the Panthers and the Falcons dominate NFL football for Week 10. This is the start of the second half of the season, 136 games played, 136 left for the second half of the year. I just did the calculation, by the way. The underdog has covered 131 times this year. The underdog has covered 131 times. There have been 10 pushes. So of that, that's not right. The 137 games is what it is. I will get that number to you in a second. We have the totals listed up here, but the underdog has covered way more than the favorite has. There have been 10 pushes this year. We'll get that number in a second. So the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina tonight. When we come back, we'll take a break here, 30 seconds, give you our best bet segment for the games today, the NBA, the NHL games as well, college basketball in the way too early segment of college basketball. But from the commercial, we come back from the commercial, it'll be a continuation of Week 10. We'll talk about Week 10 and some of the big games that are going on this week. Atlanta, Carolina tonight. Atlanta, 2.5-point favorite, 41.5 the total. Back with more on the V Party Sports Podcast, sponsored by the Brit Sports Pub and Patio, downtown San Jose. Go check out their happy hour specials. Go check out their live music. Of course, don't forget to come out and visit us on Sundays for the NFL Sunday Ticket. You mentioned the podcast during Sunday Ticket. Get 10% off your entire bill. Back with more in 1 minute. Welcome back to the V Party Sports Podcast, sponsored by the Brit Sports Pub and Patio, downtown San Jose. Check out their happy hour specials. Come visit us on Sunday for 10% off your entire bill during NFL Sunday Ticket. All right, just to recap here a little bit, Atlanta, 2.5 the line, their favorite, road favorite, the 4-5, 41.5 the total against Carolina. Carolina nearly pulled the upset off 2 weeks ago. All right, let's get to the NFL lines. You'll see them on the bottom as they scroll across the complete lines for the early games. We'll get to the afternoon games in a second. But in the NFL this week, not only Atlanta, Carolina tonight, the headline game for Thursday Night Football. Week 10 has two top division teams going. Tampa Bay at 4-5 will technically host Seattle. The game will be in Germany. It'll be early, 9:30 a.m. Eastern in Germany. Two first-place teams. This is a big game for both because, head-to-head is the first tiebreaker, and that can be very important in seeding, especially with division winners. Two other first-place teams are going to go. The Minnesota Vikings are going to visit Buffalo. Buffalo is 6-2 after their loss to the Jets. How about that? 11-point favorite on the road at New York, and they end up losing outright to the Jets. Of course, Josh Allen hurt his elbow, an ulnar nerve. He's questionable right now. They're doing tests on him every week. And then Adam Thielen is questionable for the Vikings as well. But the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, you like that? You like that? Kirk Cousins telling everybody that he's back 7-1. They barely beat the Washington Commanders over the weekend. They were a 3-point favorite. They covered by not going for the touchdown. They kicked the game-winning field goal. Hurt me. Got a push. One of the 10 pushes this year in the NFL against the spread record. By the way, let me get to that here. 136 games played, so 272 teams. Team games played, obviously. So 131 games that were covered by the underdog, 10 pushes. And so that would leave 141 minus 270, 131. So it's about 50-50 right now. 131, 131, and 10 is the record against the spread. So it's right split right down the middle for against the spread. In fact, I'll put that up later on another daily post that we have, that the underdogs and the favorites are right down the middle at 50%. 131 favorites covered, 131 underdogs covered, and 10 pushes this year so far. All right, you look at the lines this week, as we said, more with the NFL. The Buccaneers and Seahawks will play Sunday morning in Germany. The Vikings and Bills as well in Buffalo. Josh Allen, make sure you check the injury reports. The official reports don't come out until 90 minutes before game time. We'll have those for you on Sunday, live from the Brit Sports Pub and Patio. All right, moving on to Week 10. Those Los Angeles Chargers, who got the win last week in Atlanta, they will come to the Bay Area. They will visit San Francisco, play Sunday night. The 49ers, a 7-point favorite on the road for the Chargers. They're also flexed next week to host Kansas City on the following Sunday night as well, too. That word came out yesterday. They're moving the Bengals and Steelers game to 4:25 Eastern, 1:25 the Pacific. You see the afternoon lines going by. You see the Chargers are going to be a 7-point underdog to the 49ers. Dallas tries to extend the Packers' woes. The Packers have lost 5 in a row. They're 3-6. They're 5 games back of the Vikings. It's going to be hard to catch the division, but you got to think that maybe a wild card. Maybe a wild card. We'll see where they are in the wild card standings here. They're 12th right now in the wild card. Of course, we know the top 7 teams make it. San Francisco 7th right now. The Giants 6th. Dallas 5th. And then the 4 division leaders, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Seattle, and Tampa. In the AFC, it's Buffalo, Kansas City, by virtue of their head-to-head game. Baltimore's 3rd. Tennessee is 4th. The Jets are 5th. How about that? The New York Jets, 6-3. Both New York teams playing well. The Miami Dolphins are 6-3. The Jets beat Miami, so they get that. And then the Chargers are 7th. They're 5-3. They had a bye week last week as well, too. So very interesting to see how the playoffs are shaking out halfway through the season. Justin Fields tries to continue his good play. What a week he had against Miami. Last week, fantasy points galore. I had him. I started him. I had Stafford on the bench, but didn't have the opportunity to play him. Didn't think he was going to play well. Sure enough, they didn't play well. Last week, they were defeated by the Buccaneers, only 13 points. The Bucs beat them 16-13 last week. But Justin Fields got me all those fantasy points. They're a 3-point favorite at home versus Detroit. They're trying to get back in the swing of things, playoff-wise as well, too. They are behind Green Bay in that sense because, let's see, I think they're ahead of Green Bay now because Green Bay's lost 5 in a row. No, they're 3-6 also, and they're behind Green Bay, and they're behind Arizona. So, but Justin Fields has played well. He was Offensive Player of the Week. Kansas City hosts Jacksonville. Kansas City coming off that win last weekend. They were able to get that victory on Sunday Night Football against the Titans in overtime. 14-point favorite. Malik Willis started for Tennessee. No Ryan Tannehill. That's the high point spread. Tennessee played them tough. Derrick Henry had 2 touchdowns. They covered the 14. They're a 10-point favorite over the Jacksonville Jaguars tonight. Sorry, I just had a brain lapse there. How about Jeff Saturday, the former great Indianapolis center? He's going to coach his first game. He's never coached in the pros. He's never coached in college. He's going to coach his first game for his team he played for, the Indianapolis Colts, as they go to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. The Raiders are a 6-point favorite there, and they are 42 the total. All sorts of turmoil going on in Indianapolis right now. And they've got their game plan consultant who's going to call plays. He's never called plays before. And Jeff Saturday's never coached a game before. The Raiders, because of that, are a 6-point favorite. But who are the Raiders? They haven't played anyone yet this year as well either. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. it's just a big game field. Other games that are going to be there on Sunday. The Broncos and the Titans are going to play. Tennessee in first place in the AFC South. Browns, Dolphins. Dolphins trying to make a move in the playoff ground. Texans and the Giants. Giants 6-2, right there in the playoff hunt. They're 2 games back of Philadelphia. They're behind Dallas as well, too. And then the Cardinals and Rams. Very interesting. Arizona visits LA. Both teams in turmoil. LA can't protect Stafford. He's in concussion protocol this week. Arizona, a rough game last week as well versus Seattle at home. Seattle came in and beat them. They beat them 31-21. Arizona did some good things. I don't know if Hard Knocks is helping them there right now, but it's very interesting to see how the NFC West is going right now. Everybody thought it was going to be the best division. Seattle leads that division right now. As we go through the standings, Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Tennessee lead their divisions. Philadelphia at 8-0, still the only undefeated team. They play Monday night against Washington. Don't sleep on the Washington Commanders right now. Minnesota, second at 7-1. Seattle, 6-3 and third. And then Tampa Bay, under 500 at 4-5. Meanwhile, Dallas is fifth at 6-2. The Giants are sixth at 6-2, but they have a worse record than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So a lot to talk about NFL football-wise. We'll do it all Sunday on the live broadcast, live podcast from the Brit Sports Pub and Patio. Remember, show up on Sunday for the Brit Sports Pub and Patio live broadcast. Mention the Sunday ticket. Mention the podcast. You get 10% off your entire bill as well, too. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Let's give you some best bets here right now in terms of the NFL. Everything that we talked about with Atlanta, they have a lot more to lose right now than the Carolina Panthers do. Though Carolina with a win can pull themselves back up. Realistically, not a division shot. Realistically, not a playoff shot either. But the way they played this year in terms of versus the South, it's not a great division. They are at home. They've played well at home. The Atlanta Falcons have played okay on the road. I can see their stats here right now. They've not played well on the road in terms of winning games. They've covered games. They've not covered in 3 straight right now. Have the Falcons. They were 6-0 to start. They did not cover against the Chargers. They got blown out by the Bengals. They lost to where are the Falcons here? They lost to the Bengals in week 7. They beat the 49ers. That's when they went 6-0. Then in week 8, they got beat up by the Panthers. They didn't cover against the Panthers. They won that game in overtime. So that's where we're at right now with Atlanta. Meanwhile, Carolina 3-0 against the division versus the spread. They are 2-5 overall. But right now, you got to think that Carolina, with that last ranked defense versus the pass for Atlanta, the best bet segment of the VParty Sports Podcast for the NFL has the Carolina Panthers +3 tonight. It's 2.5 in most places. I say get it up to 3. That way a field goal game like it was 2 weeks ago is the difference. You have to lay a little bit of odds on it. But Carolina +3 is the bet tonight for the NFL. All right, when we come back, NBA talk. We'll review some of the NBA games from yesterday. We'll talk about the 4 games today, give you our best bet segment for the NBA as well. And then we'll talk a little free agency in baseball, some of the major names that are out there in free agency. Vasi Vada Party and the VParty Sports Podcast, sponsored by the Brit Sports Pub and Patio. Make sure you show up on Sunday for the live broadcast. Mention the podcast, receive 10% off your bill. Every Sunday, 9:30 to 10:30, all of Week 10's NFL action as well. Don't forget to check out their happy hours and all their specials, music at night as well, too. Keep up with the NBA, the NHL, all the college football going on, as well as the Sundays itself. And we're going to broadcast 4 times a week. They're going to be on their YouTube channel at the Brit Sports Pub and Patio. All their TVs are smart TVs. So we're going to replay this right before game times on the YouTube channels, right before game time. So everybody that's there can see the podcast again, get the best bet segment, get all the information they need for their viewing pleasure and wagering action. All right, back in 30 seconds, the NBA, the NHL, baseball free agency. I'm Vasi Vada Party. This is the VParty Sports Podcast for Thursday, November 10th, 2022. Welcome back to the VPartySports Podcast. Vasu Vadaparty, your host here for this Thursday, the start of Week 10 of the NFL. The Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers headline Thursday sporty action. Atlanta 2.5-point favorite. I gave you the best bet of Carolina +3 by 0.5 point. We'll save you the last second field goal, which is probably going to happen. Carolina plays well at home. They've covered all three of their games versus the division at home, with wins over Tampa Bay, with wins over New Orleans, and a cover against the Atlanta Falcons on the road. So they played well at home. They're going to do well against the Falcons tonight. I have a good feeling about Carolina. All right, we get to the NBA here. Last night, the Lakers probably playing up to their talent right now. Don't know what's going on with the Lakers right now. As a Lakers fan, they lose to the Tenants. The Lakers own the building. The Tenants beat them. The Clippers beat them pretty bad. They covered 114-103, I believe, was the final score yesterday. But they were a 3-point favorite, 114-101. The Clippers over the Lakers. Clippers a 3-point favorite. The total 219, stayed under the total. Kings got a victory over the Cavaliers, 127-120. Cleveland a 4.5-point favorite in that game, but Sacramento playing well at home. Cleveland now 8-3, still playing well in the East, but that's a tough trip to take west. And those are some real good fans in Sacramento as well, too. Phoenix Suns, 129-117 over Minnesota. Phoenix is 8-3. Minnesota off to a struggling start at 5-7. Pelicans beat the Bulls 115-111. How about the Brooklyn Nets? They're continuing to play well in spite of Kyrie Irving not being there. They blow out the Knicks. We talked about the Suns beating the Wolves. The Utah Jazz beat the Atlanta Hawks. They were up big in the first half. They took a big third quarter dump, 36-22. Atlanta got them in the third quarter. They were down by as much as 12 in that third, and then they outscored them by 11, scoring 40 in the fourth. Their 125-119 victory over Atlanta. Utah Jazz, they thought they were rebuilding. 10-3 to start the year. How about that? Utah Jazz playing very well in the Western Conference. A lot of veterans on that team, a lot of veterans people don't know of, but they're playing very well on that team. Atlanta still 7-4 in the mix in the East. The Bucks are now 10-1. They didn't have Giannis last night. They beat Oklahoma City in 2 overtimes. 136-132 in 2 overtimes last night. In overtime, the Grizzlies beat the Spurs 124-122. They did not cover the 5 points against San Antonio. San Antonio's a tough team. They may be only 5-7 record-wise, but spread-wise, they're very good. And Memphis now 8-4 in the league, playing well in the West. All right. The lines, as you see them go across right now, Dallas, a 5-point favorite at Washington, 209 the total. Atlanta, back-to-back nights, a 1-point favorite versus the Philadelphia 76ers, 222 the total. And Miami, 10.5 versus Charlotte at home, 214. And then the final game, the Pelicans coming off their win yesterday over the Bulls at 6.5 versus Portland, 224.5 the total. Very interesting scenario in the NBA tonight. Went through the NBA spreads. I'm just trying to get through the spread lines here. Charlotte is 4-7 against the spread. They have the Miami Heat, who have not played well against the spread either. They're 2-9 against the spread as well, too. So the Pelicans have played well. They're 5-6 against the spread. Portland will not be with Damian Lillard tonight, but they're 9-2 against the spread, and they're getting 6.5 points tonight. So that's going to be a very interesting scenario in New Orleans tonight. Still no Lillard. They've got Jeremy Grant. They're playing very well with regards to their standing right now. The Portland Trailblazers are 8-3 in the Western Conference, and they are right near the top, behind Utah and Phoenix. Utah 10-3 atop the West. Phoenix 8-3, Portland 8-3, Denver 8-3, Memphis 8-4. Those round out the top 5 in the Western Conference. All right, best bet segment now for the NBA, and we'll give you the hockey ones as well too. Portland, that is not right. Portland. I don't know who produces these things. I guess I do, so I guess I'll have to figure it out. Portland plus 6.5 is where I'm going with this. Here we go. Portland plus 6.5. Dallas, Washington under 209. I'm going to throw a bonus one in. That's Charlotte plus 10.5. Looks awfully tempting. Not an official pick yet, but check out the post for that as well too. But Portland plus 6.5 tonight versus the New Orleans Pelicans, and then Dallas and Washington. Dallas lost yesterday at Orlando. They are 6-4 on the year. They're not playing very well. First game for Luka in 10 straight where he didn't get 30 points against Orlando last night. They lost 94-87. It was an early game yesterday. A lot of you may have missed it being at work still, 5:30 Eastern start, 2:30 here on the West Coast. Orlando came back big late in the third quarter and early in the fourth quarter to not only cover the 7.5, but to beat Dallas by 7. They continue the road trip today. They are at Washington. They're a 4.5-point favorite. Let me get the injury report here. See if we can. Bradley Beal's still out tonight. That may hurt, but Washington can score. They've got Porzingis. They've got Kyle Kuzma. They've got guys on that team that can score. Of course, the Mavericks are going to be without Christian Wood and Davis Bertans tonight. But I like that under the way the game started and finished yesterday against Orlando. Orlando, a high-scoring team. Dallas pretty good defensively, but I got a feeling this game is going to be under 209 without Bradley Beal as well there too. And then Portland, we said 8-3, playing well without Damian Lillard. He was scheduled to come back today. He's not going to be back in this game today as they visit New Orleans. He'll be out. And then Larry Nance Jr., day-to-day, the only mention on the injury list for the Pelicans. But Portland plus 6.5 tonight, the way to go for the best bets. All right, best bets for hockey. Carolina Hurricane minus 140. They're playing well. They got a hat trick from Sebastian Acho on Friday. They've got the Edmonton Oilers, who just came off a win over Tampa Bay. They're 140. The New Jersey Devils are playing very well. They've got the Ottawa Senators, who are 4-8. The Devils are 10-3. They're 175. Philadelphia Flyers beat up on St. Louis at home 2 nights ago, even though they were an underdog to the St. Louis Blues. They're minus 105. They're another underdog at Columbus at minus 105 tonight. You look at Carolina, they're third in the Metropolitan. They're 8-4-1. New Jersey, as we said, 10-3. Edmonton at 8-6 after their win over Tampa. Philadelphia having a really good start to their year. They're 7-3-2 coming into tonight as well. So those are your 3 hockey bets going into tonight. So the best bets again for today, Carolina plus 3 in the NFL. If you buy the 0.5 point, Portland plus 6.5 versus the Pelicans tonight. No Lillard, but I'm very confident in the 8-3 Portland Trailblazers. Dallas, Washington under 209. And then in hockey, Carolina minus 140. The Devils minus 175. And the Flyers at minus 105 tonight as well, too. All right, real quick, some free agency news before we get out of here. Obviously, free agency started. Aaron Judge is a big name. The sweepstakes began. Of course, all 30 teams would love to have him, including the Yankees. Where will he go? Be very interesting. Edwin Diaz also filed for free agency, but the Mets came back to him right away, signed him for 5 years before free agency started. Once free agency starts, you can't sign your own players until after the new year. So Edwin Diaz stays with the Mets. A lot of money to give him, a lot of years. 5 years to stay with the Mets. He had a great year this year. Hopefully he'll be there. Hopefully he'll be successful. Years for pitchers are tough to give, especially for relievers going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. All right, more free agency news. 3 Mets pitchers have filed. Jacob deGrom, Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker have all filed for free agency. Talk about the Texas Rangers going after Jacob deGrom. Bassett, former Oakland A pitcher, testing the market. This might be his only chance to get a good contract. Justin Verlander elected free agency as well, too, the world champion pitcher for the Houston Astros. Probably a 2-year contract. He's entering his age 40 season. The big position for free agency this year, shortstop with Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, Xander Bogaerts, and Dansby Swanson. Of course, first base with Anthony Rizzo, Jose Abreu, Josh Bell of the Padres. Actually, both first basemen for the Padres filed for free agency, Josh Bell and Will Myers. And then Wilson Contreras, one of the best catchers in the league, one of the best hitting catchers in the league, also there as well. As you look at the NFL lines go by, Atlanta, Carolina tonight, big games this weekend in the NFL with Tampa Bay and Seattle, Minnesota and Buffalo. The Chargers visit San Francisco. The Green Bay Packers trying to escape their 5-game losing streak at home versus Dallas. When was the last time Aaron Rodgers was a 5-point underdog at home? Justin Fields and the Bears will host Detroit. Kansas City will play Jacksonville. Kansas City barely winning against Tennessee last Sunday night. Jeff Saturday coaching his first game for the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, Carolina, 2.5 tonight, 41.5 the total. Falcons are tied with the Bucs for first place in the NFC South. Carolina 2-7, but they're 3-0 against the spread in the South, which is why I took Carolina tonight as well. All right, one more time. The afternoon lines for the games. Las Vegas will host Indianapolis, as we said, Saturday. Coaches his first game. Arizona and the Rams in an NFC West game. Who comes out of that? Two teams that have been pretty mediocre so far this year. And then Dallas and Green Bay. Dallas 5-43 Sunday night. 49ers are 7 over the Chargers, 45.5. Monday night, Philadelphia. We'll get to that on Monday as well, but -11 over Washington. Don't sleep on the Commodores. That's a division game. That's a division game, 44 the total as well there too. The NBA, yeah, 4 games tonight in the NBA. A lot of hockey to go with, but obviously NFL will dominate today. Don't forget the Brit Sports Pub and Patio sponsors our podcast. Every Sunday we do a live show there, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, as well as online on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Come in, mention the podcast, receive 10% off your entire bill during Sunday ticket. Check out their happy hour during the week. Check out their music, NBA, NHL action, college football as well, too. 20 TVs plus, both indoor and outdoor on the patio as well, too. We look forward to meeting you. Hope you say hi. Please send any comments to me at VPartySports on Twitter, VPartySports on Instagram. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Vasi Vada Party, and on Facebook as well, too. You can find me, Vasi Vada Party. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for joining us today. Best Bet segment, the NFL Thursday Night Football preview for Week 10. We're halfway through the NFL season, 136 down, 136 to go. The NBA continues its season. The NHL goes on, and then we'll have a college football show for you as well tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow, 3 Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, for a college football show, as well as some more NBA and some more NHL talk as well. We'll review the Thursday night game for Atlanta and Carolina. I'm Vasi Vada Party. Thanks very much for joining me. This has been the V-Party Sports Podcast for Thursday. Enjoy the game tonight. Good luck with all your action. Good luck with all your viewing. Have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.